Welcome to the Squad Games Podcast. Squad Games Podcast.
He's got an intro.
Who needs an intro when this is the Squad Games Podcast? What's up, everyone?
I'm uncomfortable. We didn't have any banter before you actually talked about what we're doing here.
No, we had a lot of banter. We just didn't record it.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah. We were dunking on Eric for using that one browser. He didn't even get to hear any of it.
Yeah, we were.
To be fair, I used Microsoft Edge today as well. Because I was setting up a laptop for my mom and I had to open it to download Chrome. So, to be fair, I also used Edge today.
It's got to get used once.
You know, my wife uses it on occasion too, I don't know why.
I sometimes have to use it when it's a work-related thing or I need to just do something with absolutely zero extensions or anything like that. But usually I'm forced into it. It's fine.
It's fine.
It's fine.
So, Eric, is that your preferred browser?
No, I'm just lazy.
So you just clicked on the first one?
The first one there.
Just the one that came with the laptop, nothing else. I'm pretty simple when it comes to technology. I kind of go against the grain, honestly.
Oh, my cat wants to leave.
That's fair.
You scared Giacomo's cat away with that, Eric.
No.
So, Eric, this is the first time you've ever been on the Squad Games Podcast. You you play with Plasma Spam. You are part of Plasma Spam's team. Do you want to give us any more of an introduction about yourself and your kind of role in the team?
Sure. So, I have been a member of Plasma Spam since the founding of Plasma Spam back in 2018 when I originally met the founders, Stefan Green, may he rest in peace, Orion Wilfong, Daniel Valente, and Will Blood. Those were the main people. I was just about to go to grad school, and I was playing 40K just like all of you guys for a really long time, and I saw all those players playing a small skirmish game, and I thought, well, I was always into Drukhari, or back then Dark Eldar, and I thought they would make the best kill team because of their lore. And so kind of got started there, talked to a couple of them about the game, what to expect, and then I started showing up on Tuesday nights there and playing with some of them. And since then, we've helped create, along with you guys and people from New York and Florida, a really strong community for Kill Team since then, almost 5 years now. And basically my role is to help bring in people to Kill Team, just like you guys, increase the community awareness of it, tell people that if they have models at home already from their 40K army, to just bring them to learn an intro game if they're interested. I also help host events, not as elaborate as you, Dakotah, but just just trying to get the Kill Team brand out there. And I think mostly what's important is hosting an event, but showing that it's not just about winning and getting golden tickets, but it's also to enjoy the hobby and the game itself.
Okay, fair. Now, you both are coming to LVO. All four of us on this podcast are. And, it's pretty exciting because, Eric, you're coming, this is going to be your first time and you're coming for the competitive event. And Emmanuel, this is your third or fourth time and you're coming for the narrative.
Well, 2020, then we all blacked out for a bit. And then, what was it, last year? So third time, I guess, for me.
Third time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm coming for the narrative event. I'm super stoked for that. Very, very excited. Also coming for that sweet old hobby track score as well. Yeah, I'm increasingly excited the closer it gets. I cannot explain.
Good. Yeah, the narrative is going to be a lot of fun this year. A lot of us are I have a core narrative group that is helping build. I kind of came up with like the general gist of what I kind of wanted. And I was like, all right, fellas, go ahead and take it away. And it's mostly Saya, Rob, and Sheldon that are putting a lot of the footwork and legwork behind it. Sheldon's done all the art and he's done half the pack, and so is Rob, and Saya's coming up with more of the story. So,
and I've played both in Sheldon's narrative stuff and Rob's local narrative stuff, and they're both absolutely top tier experiences. The narrative tournament events that Sheldon's has done have been super fun. He always does very flavorful kind of equipment to give out to people with cool bases of operations, that kind of stuff. And Rob's story and creativity with the stuff he's done in our local narrative campaigns has always been a riot to play with. So it's with those two folks along with Saya, I can only imagine myself grinning from ear to ear for 3 days straight.
You'll become the Grinch.
That's right. I'm already green.
And then Eric, you are coming through and you're going to be playing the competitive, which is going to be the largest in the world. We have 164 tickets sold to LVO this year, which is 50 more than the closest event, which is Warhammer World at 117. Now let's see if all of them show up. You know, like we're always going to have some kind of drops. So we don't know what number we're going to actually land at, but that's pretty exciting. Are you excited?
I have to be honest. I don't want to get too excited. And the reason why is I've learned in the past, if I get super excited about something, I'm usually disappointed. Okay. Now, to be fair, I have promised Orion and Dan, who have been there for the last 2 years, that I would finally go. And I am starting to get pretty pumped for the event because
I'm excited to disappoint you.
Yeah. I'm excited to compete with someone that was on the podcast recently with you for Best Sport, because if I knew someone was going to get a gold ticket for Best Sport, I would have showed up in California with Orion.
All right.
So I would like to play that individual, hopefully throughout the 3-day event, and get to meet him and talk to him and, you know, just get to understand why he likes the game and how he approaches to making fun events and specifically interactions with his opponents as well. I think that'd be very interesting.
Are you talking about Aiden?
I am. Absolutely.
Aiden's
a legend. He's a fucking legend.
And he's colorblind.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, one of those. That's right. I remember that.
One of those?
Whoa. So let me tell you everyone a little story about Emmanuel. Emmanuel loves to do colorblind things to make colorblind people's life a living hell. So let me explain.
I don't know if that's entirely accurate. I think
he just sent a picture of his keyboard, which is very hard for us colorblind people to see. It's a red lights and black keys. Now I can see it, but it's difficult. He also loves to paint the color green. So that's number 2 strikes. And the third strike is his BFF, Alex Squires. He bought him these gray dice with red tips. Right. And I can't fucking see them. So whenever I play Alex, I'm like, yo, Alex, I know those are your homie's dice, but I don't know what the fuck you rolled. And he's like, oh, my bad. So Emmanuel's over here actively, aggressively hating on colorblind people.
Yeah, so. It's actually been my life mission ever since I was a young child and enjoyed Doritos for Cooler Ranch Doritos for all the wonderful colors they provide. I made it my life mission just to dunk on colorblind people knowingly and unknowingly for the rest of my life. You got me pegged.
I did. And then Giacomo's right there with you with this fucking Dorito Casselkin. His Dorito Casselkin.
Cool Ranch Casserkins, man.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
So Aiden's awesome. He's going to be there. He's bringing some amazingly painted models. So if you don't end up playing him, maybe you guys can catch a game afterwards or in the After Dark. We're going to do. So that should all be a ton of fun because the After Dark's going to be very loose. You can do what we're doing, or you can play an extra game, outside of it. And hopefully I'll convince Sheldon to bring his giant black light to make it even more spicy. So it's going to be pretty exciting. It's going to be pretty fun. So looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to seeing you again, Eric.
Yeah, dude. We haven't seen each other since Nova.
Yeah, and then before that it was KTO.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've seen you quite a lot this year, so but not enough for my tastes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So now that we got the LVO discussion out of the way, we're going to move on to a little bit more of what our actual topic is for today. And that is, what is intent for Kill Team? What is it transformed into? And if it's good or not for the game, and everything to do with it. And then we'll go through a couple other small talking points as well. But, there's intent is a very tricky subject, for a lot of reasons, right?
It's only a tricky subject if you intend for it to be. Boo this man. Boo me. I deserve that.
Officer, the man who made the joke.
So I am intending, I'm skirting around the subject because I'm not trying to hurt anyone's feelings that loves to play by intent. I think playing by intent is good if you do it in the correct way. I think that at Worlds and through us watching people play in tournaments and stuff, sometimes intent can be abused, sometimes intent can be misused, and sometimes it's intentional and sometimes it's not, right? And by intentional, I mean sometimes it's actively cheating, right? And other times, obviously, people don't mean to do something. And it's a very tricky subject to talk about, especially in a competitive type game, because if Games Workshop has shown us anything, is that this is their competitive game. 40K is not competitive currently. I mean, it is, but it's not as fun.
It's the 5+ meta. You either run vehicles or anti-vehicle, and that's it.
Really? Is that what it's become? Because vehicles suck donkey balls for a long time, G.
Vehicles fuck right now.
Really? So you're telling me I can bring my 14 Falcons and smash kids?
I don't know. Falcons are good, maybe. Legally you can't, because you can only bring the rule of 3.
Oh, yeah.
Apparently vehicles are great, except for orc buggies, is what I heard. They're kind of cool. Like they can do the crash thing. Yeah. I mean, I had before, this is super tangential, but before SCO, I think 2021, about 6 months prior to that, I was building a speedwah full of buggies, and then a not speedwah, I think they were freebooters, one SCO with nearly the exact list that I was just building for fun, and then they just got dunked on with nerfs. And all that plastic is still sitting on sprue in a closet right now. So if buggies are in fact fun and good, so I'm not just showing up and losing, I might actually put them together and play a game of 40K. But to echo what Dakotah was saying about competitive, from what I hear from tons of folk, including Alex, is that while it can still be played competitively, 40K in the current rule set is fun, but not as competitive as most people would like it to be. Correct. Is that kind of what you're kind of getting at? Because that's what I've heard as well.
It's a balancing thing. Like there's so many units and so many armies.
Yeah. So
many units in each army, I should say, that it's hard to balance that amongst every other army, where you can balance a team that's smaller and, generally get the core rules working really well with it. And that's why this game has stayed so tight,
And I think there's been multiple sources and multiple people saying that Games Workshop views this as their most competitive game. In fact, I was told this at LVO last year.
Yeah, by Brandt.
Yeah, and like this is the game they want to be the most competitive game, right? And that's I mean they might have their reasons why they don't support Hobby Track. I'm not really sure why. But I have a feeling it's because they want this game to be, you know, more or less, I mean, this is speculation, but, you know, more competitive. And while that's unfortunate in the aspect, we obviously don't know if they have future plans or what they're planning for this year, this coming up ITC season. But like, this game is very competitive and it's usually well balanced. There's some times where there's some meta things that, you know, flippy floppy, you know, Colts, but
Caster Kings.
I do think that there's a lot of teams that have play into Kashyyykin, so I don't know if they're going to actually just like dominate the entire meta, but you know, LVO will tell. They'll tell a lot of stuff.
I think Blooded is great into them.
So is Pathfinders, and you know, Vetguard are good too. So,
but like,
so
Blooded close the
right?
gap, and then they could be like, "Yo, Gaze by the Gods. Here's a critical, and you only have 3 attacks in close combat, and you just like wreck them." You know, just saying from experience. That dude, I mean, they can close the gap, like you die. But like if you got the range, you just kill him.
You heard it here first. Blooded are going to win LVO.
Blooded top seed at LVO.
Craven bring Blooded now.
I know he will. I felt the wrath of Nick Craven's Blooded before.
Shout out to the NC. There you
go. Yeah. Oh my love God. That guy. That guy's a fucking legend.
He's
me tell you what.
Chill ass dude.
So,
he really is.
But quick funny story about Nick. Dakotah, whenever there are big events that are pretty local, Nick and I are rooming buddies. And the night of, after we get the day 2 for the first round, Nick always looks at me before we go to bed and he's like, "So how should I prepare for Vetguard? Or how should I prepare for Corsairs?" And he gets out his tablet and he starts looking at the maps and he's like, "So should I put my model here? You give a comms here and do this and that?" And you know, I just have to be his emotional support buddy. And
of course,
it's hilarious, but how much he was looking forward to playing you day 2 and how nervous he was at the same time it was great for just to be a bystander and just witness it. But
well, yeah. I was also bunking with all plasma spammers, so it's not. I didn't want to ask. Yeah. I didn't want to ask a single one of them. Be like, "Hey, how do you play into Blooded? I've never played them before." I was like, "I'm just gonna go to sleep and see what happens tomorrow."
Yeah.
And the answer was, you know, get fucked, and that's what happened. I immediately saw Into the Dark, and I was like, "Oh, that's gonna be hard." Oh, this map. Oh, that's even worse. I've never won on this map.
When I saw the Into the Dark map, Nick turned around and looked at me, and I saw the board, and then we just like smiled at each other for a second, and I was like, "Nick's probably gonna win." No offense to your Vetguard. Your Vetguard are amazing.
It's like that that GIF, that meme of the dude who's out in the wilderness, and it kind of slow zooms in onto his face, and he just gives like the slight nod. That's the moment you shared. Back to intent.
Yeah.
I guess it's our intent to get back on track.
Yeah. So it's okay if you do it.
This is our podcast.
Fine. I understand. I get it.
Boo me, destroy me.
I will concede that point, but
G can do whatever he wants.
That's right. He edits it, so he can do whatever he wants, literally.
I can add a fart noise here. I won't, but I can.
He'll just come back and add his own puns in later.
He adds in the bullet shots again, you know?
Fun fact, this is something special for Mr. Alex Popov. I'll read the message because it's funnier this way. I think it's going to be funny. All right. There he is. He's showing me pictures of stuff. What else did he say? Yes. I like how you are almost silent when the 2 Eldar nerds drool over the Blades of Cain rules and Eldari lore. Giacomo stood when SGP fell to the Xenos fanboys. He doesn't know, or at least won't know until this releases, that I wasn't there for the second part
He
mostly,
wasn't.
and I just put myself in there in post.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's funny.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we left open like spots so that G could just like insert himself, but yeah, G had to leave early because it was a 4-hour long recording session.
Jeez.
And-
Oh man.
yeah, and because we didn't realize how much it was going to be, like to go through both teams, and then we just nerded out for a little too long, and G had to leave. So yeah, it was good.
It was dope.
So with an intent,
How do you guys think it all started? I guess maybe where we should start there.
well, the game, I have a lot of thoughts on this, and the game when it was new, a lot of competitive folks, and this is going back to previous edition, Kill Team 18. A lot of competitive folks learned very quickly that the game is won and lost on fractions of an inch. And the first time I ever encountered intent is with positioning. I'm intending to be 8.1 inches away from your model with the flamer. So that way, when they make a charge, they don't get overwatched because they're just out of range. That kind of stuff. That's the first time I saw intent. And I didn't see it used much else for really anything else in last edition. Not that I recall, at least. It might have come up, maybe, but it was heavily just for distances and positioning.
I think last edition it was mostly like my intent is to have this guy completely hidden.
Oh,
Yeah,
that, yes. And visibility, yes.
And people were like, okay, yeah, can any of you guys see him? They look? No. All right, cool.
Yeah, and the purpose of that was to solve a problem of this game needing that precision at high level play, but a simple nudge of the table can change those fraction of the inches or slivers of visibility and lead to a completely different board state. So having that communication with your opponent allows you to restore a game state that was critical to your positioning, right? And my opinion is that that's where intent should begin and end, honestly. And to speak to what you're saying of how intent has more or less gotten a little out of hand, or maybe to phrase it a little bit differently, because out of hand is probably not the best way to say it. It's gotten to this point where people seem to intentionally or unintentionally lean on intent to protect them or allow for situations that intent should never be involved in. Especially moments where there's intent that wasn't communicated or not explicitly communicated. And I think that's where the line is between what intent should be and what it's being pushed into where it really doesn't belong. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah.
Can I piggyback off that?
Hell yeah, go for it.
Okay. So I completely agree with Emmanuel. I believe that playing by intent, at least from my understanding, and please tell me if you guys agree, is for someone to say to their opponent what they are trying to do and see if that action or play is actually correct within the rules and making sure that their opponent knows exactly what they're doing. And to go off further even more from you, Emmanuel, I also remember last edition for the 2018 Kill Team version, playing Orion Wilfong, playing Chris Baki, playing Shane Smith, some of the top players at the time and still are very top players, that I don't ever remember them telling me, well, my intent is to be back here to shoot you, but you can't shoot me. Or my intent is that you can never see me. I think part of the reason why intent was introduced into the new version of Kill Team is because of the lack of communication between players because of the new edition just coming out and players still learning the difference between rules like visibility obscurity, and movement, and completely trying to understand what your opponent is trying to do correctly under the new rule set.
And the new rules also allow for a lot more nuance with positioning and a lot more nuance with actions and interventions and stuff. Auras and interruptions and stuff like that are a lot more complex. So I think that also introduces a lot more space for folks to have arguments or assumptions based on intent. But honestly, like, it's whether it's I intended to do this because my guy can do this, unless accurately communicated, that's no one can be in your brain to prove that, right? And I think that's where it starts to head into a gray zone and starts to become a complex thing to manage, not only as a player playing someone who might be overstepping the boundaries of what intent should be, and then, unfortunately, the TO being roped into a situation where it almost becomes a he said, she said situation, right? Which is a super unfair place to ever put a TO in, because TOs really, they, in an ideal situation, are only there to clarify rules disputes, right? Not personality or intent disputes, right? But it happens as we're people playing games, right? And people are inherently flawed, and stuff like that will happen. So TOs have to jump in. G and Dakotah and Saya have to jump in to help resolve situations like that. So hopefully, with more clarity on what intent should cover and shouldn't cover, that actually eases stuff not only for players but also for the TOs too, right?
I believe so.
Yes.
So I agree with you both, but I do have one stark difference. I think that you both said it very well, but I do think that intent is more of a new player problem, rather than the edition being new, right? Or this edition came out and it was like this. Maybe that's kind of how it started, but intent usually happens with every new player as they are learning the game. And that's okay. That's 100% okay. If you're trying to communicate to your opponent, hey, my intent is to do this, then your opponent should more or less be like either accepting or like, hey, I don't think you can do that. Let's see if you can, as together, because you're playing the game together, right? So,
well, can I interject real quick just for a clarification, sure, just to make sure I'm understanding? When you're saying intent, we might be looking at intent in a different way, because when you say as a new player, that seems to me as someone who's trying to accomplish something and calling out for a response to verify that they accomplish what they think they can accomplish with what they've done based on a newer understanding of the rules. Is that kind of what you're getting at?
Yes, but I think that intent encompasses everything. So what you guys have spoken about and this, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, okay. And that's why I wanted to clarify, because I think there is a place for intent with very experienced players as well. In that example that I gave of establishing a very precise board state to ensure that everything's above board, pun intended, with what you're trying to accomplish, being just outside of charge range from a bomb squig, calling out my intent is to be here, measuring it, allowing space for your opponent to measure it, and saying, yes, I confirm that. So that way, later on, your opponent has, if something gets nudged, it always happens, even with a most precise play, right? Something gets nudged, something gets bumped. You know that, okay, well, now I'm just within charge range, but we talked about this before, so it wasn't the case back then, right? So I think there's space for it. I think that it can very well happen more often with a newer player, but the intent of using intent, God, that was terrible. I was trying to find a different word, G, I swear. But the purpose, of using intent in that scenario is different from the purpose of using intent in a more experienced player's hands. So I think there's two ways to come about intent, or at least two ways.
I think intent encompasses all of this. And I think that it can be a bad habit or something that somebody picks up on. that people are just like, oh, my intent was never to be charged. Because we start running into issues when somebody says, my intent is for you never to charge me. My intent is for me never to be in blast range. Right. And unfortunately, if your opponent sees something that is like that, and when a TO gets called over for something and be like, oh, well, I said at the beginning of the game, my intent was never to be blasted. It's like, yeah, but you actually have two models that are like right next to each other. So how could that be in your intent if that's, if you're like, if you didn't actively do that, right? And
I see what you're saying.
And I think that there's that's when we start running into problems with intent, or the way that the people are using intent, or is to be like, my intent is not to lose, right? Like
Old is never beaten.
Yeah, and that is an issue, right? Like, obviously, we're all coming to the game to not lose the game. We all want, like, competitively, we all want to go and have fun. Does intent have a little bit more play, like in a narrative space or in casual space? People are still learning the game. Maybe they don't play as much, or they might forget some rules. Absolutely, and that's completely fine.
And I think the example you gave is a perfect way to highlight the boundaries of intent, right? Because it's a very different thing to say at the beginning of the game, oh, you have blast, you have dynamite. Okay, my intent is to never be within 2 inches, two models within 2 inches, right? And then, turning point 2, mistakes happen. You forget about it, you move models between, and then say, oh, but I said, 45 minutes ago, blah, blah, blah. That's very different than me moving a gunner up next to comms, measuring between the two, saying they're just outside of 2 inches. My intent is to have him here outside of 2 inches from that model. That's a very different scenario. And that's also very different from a new player versus an experienced player, because the first example, which is the one that you highlighted, saying a blanket intent at the beginning of the game, that's something that a newer player might do, or someone who's leaning a little too heavy on intent to try and overcome a memory skill issue kind of thing later on in the game, versus the opposite end of that, the second example being a very experienced player keeping that information in their mind and accessing it for the game. Because the difference between a very good player who gets their golden ticket and a player that's not at that point yet in their kill team journey is accessing and keeping and executing on that information. And even the most experienced players still make that mistake. I'll give you an example of where I made that mistake, right? And I'll give you an example of how I did not lean on intent, right? It was actually a recorded game. It was streamed at LVO. I played Baki and Pods, His Blood and my Commandos. And I don't remember exactly where the score was before this point, but there was a very specific mistake I made that pretty much sealed the deal. I think we were pretty close. I might have had a slight upper hand. We might have been together. I don't remember exactly. All I know is that I had taken out a sniper. I'd made a dynamite play. I'd put him in an awkward position with what he wanted to do. And then I moved my comms and I eyeballed the charge range of his Ogren, and it seemed out. I didn't measure. I also didn't call out at that moment. My intent is for you not to be able to charge my comms. Had I called that out, or had I sat down and measured and said it, then it would have been completely fine, because he would have measured and said, oh, you actually are just within charge range. I said, okay, I'll move back, right? Had I called that out and said that, he would have verified and found out that I was actually still within charge range. So I can intend whatever the heck I want, right? I'm still legally within charge range. So it doesn't matter what I'm intending. It's not a valid board state that I'm calling out. So I have to correct it if I want to satisfy my intent. But I eyeballed it and I was wrong. He said, oh, I'm going to charge. I'm going to see if I can charge your comms boy. He measures that out. He's got like at least a quarter of an inch extra. So it's close, but it's not one of those charges where you're kind of hovering over and you're trying to see. It's like, well, if I look at this angle, you're not over my base. It's like, he clearly had the charge. And I said, oh, well, my intent was not to be in charge range, but I eyeballed it. That's on me. Go ahead and beat him up, right? I called out what my intent was, but that I failed to actually confirm that intent. And I said, you completely have it. Go for it, right? And where was I going with it? Oh, and that's an example of where the boundaries of intent are, where I could have said it, but I didn't. And because I didn't say it, I can't just say that I intended not to be in there. Even if I said at the beginning of the turning point, I intend to always be outside of charge range of that Oghren, and then I do it like 10 minutes later, if I don't call out that specific movement and then verify that call out and allow my opponent a chance to either agree with it or measure it and say that I'm wrong, then I can't just rely on that blanket statement. So that's why this all, like you said before, Dakotah, this all falls under intent. You're absolutely right in saying it, but there's boundaries to when it's appropriate and when it's inappropriate to use in competitive play. I think we can agree on that. Is that fair?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I think I think that you said something in there. You just glanced over it though. That's very important.
Go for it.
I think that when you're using intent, it's very important to call it out, and then your opponent. And let's say somebody's doing this against you or saying this for you. It's very important that you make sure that his intent is valid. Mm-hmm. Because there's two things that are going to happen. So let's say Emmanuel moved his guy just in range. You said, hey, my intent is not to be in charge range. Chris is like, cool. And then he later on chooses to charge that model and be like, oh, well, actually you're in charge range. Like the TO gets called over. Obviously, if it's not being recorded, the TO has to side with rules that are on the table. Mm-hmm. Right. So it is both players' jobs to make sure that the intent is being properly measured and that model is in the correct spot, especially for blasts, for charges, for being able to get just in range of like a melt-a-gun or something like that. For instance, there's a couple times at Merry Mayhem recently where I moved up a guy to melt-a-gun a guy, and I didn't measure out beforehand. I wasn't like that careful. And then I was playing against Corsairs, and then he did the 3-inch charge on me, and I was like, oh, obviously my intention wasn't to do that. I didn't say anything because I was within 3, and I'm like, good. He got the gotcha. I'm glad. Obviously I shouldn't have moved there, but it is what it is, right?
But mistakes happen. And
exactly.
I guess what I was I forgot where I was going with that story, which is a common thing with me, but I made a mistake, and that single mistake likely cost me the game, right?
Yeah.
And if we all play by perfect intent with a blanket statement or a clear, obvious optimal play or optimal move or something like that, and we lean on, well, it's obvious I wouldn't have done that. Well, yeah, but you forgot a rule, and we all forget rules. We forget interactions. We make misplays, and that's what, otherwise we're just playing Dice Simulator, right? Right. It's all about not just the team, but the pilot, and the pilot who has the least mistakes and maybe the best nudge of dice at the right moments, because it is a dice game. There is a luck factor, but usually it's the player with the least mistakes and the more optimal plays along the course of the tournament that's going to come out on top at the end. Not the person who knows all the right things to do, but constantly walks back to the right thing once they realize that they've made a mistake. And that's where the intent thing can get super blurry. And I'm seeing that happen more and more and more in a lot of competitive spaces too. And I think that's the main reason why you wanted to bring up this topic. Is that right, Dakotah?
I've wanted to bring up this topic for a little while. And also Eric reached out to me and told me that this is something that'd probably be good to talk about.
Oh,
and
okay.
I totally agree. Because I know Eric has a lot of thoughts and opinions on this too. Eric, what do you think, brother?
Oh, well, sorry. First of all, I have to give a shout out to Emmanuel referring to a Top Gun reference. That was awesome for old people here. But I completely agree with where both of you guys are going. I will say, Dakotah, that intent, I think, is very useful for newcomers to the game. I think it's really good if you have a teacher like yourself, myself, Emmanuel, Giacomo, Orion, Chris Baki, players like that have been around the game a while, no interactions, because then they can kind of learn a little bit more that what the game is about and how they intend to move models. But I will agree with Emmanuel that being a TO myself for a very small event, but a golden ticket event, and then also other events that I've been to, I've heard of stories and I've been there right around the interactions where good players have realized they messed up. And when they see their opponent catching on it and they're about to activate their model and do the action to make them pay for it, they'll deliberately bring up, oh, well, my intent was to do this, when they never stated that before. And I think that's where this gets tricky, because like you said earlier, nobody wants to call anybody a cheater. It's really, it's a big sting to someone, and you don't feel right telling someone, oh, well, you're using intent to your advantage. And the other point that's really hard too to come with, that we all know that friends have had to deal with recently at really big events and small events to possibly even get a golden ticket, is players not believing what their opponent's intent actually is, or their play is one thing, but then their actions are saying another. And that's very hard, because if you want to play a game of intent and just talk for 2 hours, don't roll the dice. And that's my opinion. Like, I'm all for learning. And if someone's like, hey man, I'm moving my model right here, is there any way you can shoot me this turn? I'd be like, we measure it out. I'm like, no, you can't, or I can't shoot you. That's completely fine. That's different. But for someone,
or I can't shoot you right now. That's that's the proper response.
Yeah.
Because you always, you got to say like, hey man, I can always move and I still might not be able to shoot you, but yeah, your model right now. Yeah. I can't shoot him right now. Mm-hmm. You know, that's important to establish, because people will then fall back on it saying like, hey, you said you couldn't shoot me. And it's like, I think that's where some of the hang up is like, obviously we're all communicating, right? And sometimes our failures in communication can lead to these like altercations, which is maybe intentional, maybe it's not intentional. You can only really decide if somebody's using intent in a negative way if it's a habitual problem that person has, right? Or
I think that's fair.
But I also will say that some top players can use it to their advantage by doing certain things and then saying like, oh, you know, like I never would have let you get that shot off in the first place. Obviously, I didn't mean to be like right there. I meant to be touching the base, the building. I didn't, you know what I mean? There is certain things that, you know, players also have to stick up for themselves for, you know, and be like, hey man, well, you didn't say it, so I get the shot.
Yeah. And that's exactly right. The saying that, hey, I'm touching here, so that way you can't shoot me from this space. If you say it and then the remodel's not there later, then you've covered your own butt there.
Yes.
Now I do want to touch on what you said about the, can my model be shot, et cetera, et cetera. I think you're absolutely correct in that it's not your job, if someone's trying to prime you for intent, for you to then go through your rules to prove to them that none of your abilities, none of your extra moves, this, that, and the other can get a model into a space that can then shoot that your operative in the future. Just, wow, I jumped around a lot there. If I'm putting a model in a spot and I call out to you, Dakotah, if we're playing, it's like, can you shoot this model? I think it's correct. And I think it's fair and not unsportsmanlike for you to say, I can't shoot you right now. And I think it's fair for you to also withhold to a certain degree, without, or not withhold, but to not volunteer additional information if not asked of you, right? I fall into that problem a lot. I end up playing about 20% of the game against myself by volunteering and offering way more information than my opponent was asking me for. That being said, at high level play, we know enough about other armies and how they work to at least know how to ask certain questions, like where are your remaining active models, right? Where's your gunners? Okay. Do you have any way to get an extra APL? Do you have any way to get extra movement? I don't have to memorize all of Hunter Clade's rules or all of Corsair's rules, but I know what questions to prompt my opponent with to then verify for myself. Okay, well, if you can get an extra APL and an extra move, that means that you can move 10 inches with that guy. He can move maximum distance all the way over here. And from that angle, he still can't shoot me. Okay. Like, I can go through that process myself if I really want to verify it, but you don't have to tell me, well, I can move this guy 10 inches and shoot you from over here. Unless, I explicitly act for it. And that's something that I actually learned from Chris Bocke. He gave me the advice, don't play against yourself so much, man. Yeah. Because I end up doing that. And I play against myself on my opponent's side way more than I should in a competitive game, because I offer all that information without being prompted for it.
Yeah. I will agree and disagree. I think I mostly agree that I think sportsmanship wise, it is always important to tell people like things that you can do. But like, if I'm playing like at a top table or something like that, am I going to remind my opponent that I have a spotter? Probably not. That can flip somebody's engage. Earlier in a tournament, I might be like, hey man, just remember I have the spotter. You know what I mean? But I do think it's important to never withhold information on purpose, because that's when you start getting
that's malicious. Yes. Yeah. And that's why I'm sorry, go ahead, Eric.
It's okay. I want to ask you guys, because all three of you were from the last kill team, and this isn't a shout out or making fun of the players from this kill team only. Do you think that because of all of the questions being asked this edition, that the players are just as good, or do you think that because of us playing from the last edition and not asking as many questions and having to actually know the chess game inside your head and not ask as many questions, do you think that players from 2018 are more equipped to just play and do better in this edition, and that it was more new players bringing intent over, or not?
I still ask tons of questions. That was my habit last edition too. I'm always, and that's kind of where I was getting at with knowing the right questions to ask to verify if your intent is valid. So I don't know if the question side of it, or maybe I'm not fully understanding what you're entailing with that.
Well, all right, let me restate then. For the game right now, I agree with Dakotah and you as well. I think that there should be questions, but there should be open-ended questions too. So like if someone asks, am I able to be shot right now by you? You should say, not at this moment, but I have something that I can use. So then this way you're not giving the opponent everything and they have to think about it. And it's not just they're given everything, but then if they ask further, well, is it like is it a tactical ploy that you can use, or is it a strategical ploy? Then you can tell them a little bit more about it, because I feel part of the game is being taken away, and the actual chess match is being taken away because you're not allowing your opponent to actually think about what it could be and then learning from their mistakes. Like, you don't want gotcha moments, obviously, in the game, right? But at the same time, I feel like part of the game is gone because we're using intent so much and we're asking so many questions that take up a lot of time throughout the match itself.
Yeah, I think going to both your questions, and then G, I know you want to say something first, G?
No, go ahead.
Going to both your questions, I think people from the past edition, I would say, are not as good as players now, currently. Nowhere near, because I think that Kill Team 2016 through 2018 or 2018 through 2020 was very much new, and you could have like 40K players that were good come over and do well at the game. I mean, that's what I did, right? I was good at 40K previous editions, maybe not 8th and 9th, but I could come in and do really well in Kill Team because it was so similar. I feel that players now, since the game is so much different, and maybe not all players. So we currently have players that are either new, or we have players that are coming from 40K or other game systems. And this game is very different, or was very different. I think 10th edition and Warcry and some other games systems have either stolen or we've stolen stuff from those systems. So there are more similarities now. But I think that some things are able to transfer over. Like, there's a couple people that play chess that I know, and the more that they've played chess, the better they've gotten at this edition, just because they're getting better at strategy. So I don't think that having to know everyone's rules, because there's maybe a more simple edition in the past, helped people in this current edition. I think that people that play this game a lot or think about this game a lot will just innately be better, because they make it more of a priority.
I think this edition is all about, when it comes to that, it's a really good exercise in learning how to communicate. To touch on what you were saying, Dakotah, I completely agree with what you said before about how you never want to withhold information. And just to clarify what I was saying by that, there's always that moment for you to explain your gotchas at the beginning of the game. Correct. And to be very clear about those. And that's where sportsmanship really starts, with being very upfront and clear about your gotchas. Like, this guy can bust through walls. This guy can shoot on conceal. This guy can teleport across the board. Clearly I'm talking about my commandos.
Yep, I can
tell. But suffice to say, it's not your responsibility to continuously remind your opponent at a top table play that, don't forget about my breacha. Don't forget about my breacha. If it's out of view, move your token, move your marker, so that way they know where your breacha is. And if they ever ask, it's like, oh, can anyone charge me? It's like, well, my breacha is right here. And you could stop there. You can volunteer saying, and he can go through walls. That's obviously the next question is going to be, how can your breacher get to me? He's behind a wall. It's like, well, he can go through walls, remember, right? So those are instances where your opponent can prompt you for those questions, but you don't need to sit there the entire game continuously reminding your opponent of every single rule that you have, if you've done your due diligence to be upfront about those in a clear and concise way, and always volunteering it whenever it's asked of you. But the questions that are important to ask are the ones that an experienced player will get to, knowing what rules are commonly broken, or what rules have been broken by teams of the core rules that allow certain situations to unfold, like the breaking through walls, getting an extra APL, flipping orders from conceal to engage, those kind of things. But those questions, do they slow the game down a bit? Yeah, but the games also would be a lot slower if we had to sit there and memorize every team's rules and stress out about it without communicating and asking those questions. So effective communication and getting through those questions is a good exercise to go through with this game anyway. And I don't think it makes players better or worse. It's just a different, more complicated game that does require those questions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Gee, you've been silent on this subject so far. Do you want to add anything before we...
No, I think you guys pretty much hit everything on there. I mean, the last thing you could say is the game is more complex than 2018. And I would give that hands down to obscuring. That one rule alone really...
yeah.
Hey, half the teams ignore it now. Man. Half the teams ignore it now.
They still have something to ignore.
That's why they're giving that rule out like candy. They're just like, no, we don't want this rule anymore. There's going to be a data slate that says, us like, take obscuring, throw it in the bin.
But obscuring is the most important thing in this game. Honestly, obscuring is the once you understand obscuring,
and line of sight,
exactly, line of sight and obscuring. As soon as you figure those two things out, Like, you know how to drive the teams. You know, it doesn't matter what team you're driving, you know how to drive. And 2018 didn't have that.
I feel like it's important to still use, hey, my intent is to be able to get a non-reciprocal shot on this guy. Let's say you're playing on Into the Dark, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And so like you move your guy and then both players can both agree that you currently have a shot that's non-reciprocal on another model, right? Like it's important to clarify to your opponent and then have that opponent also say, yes, I think this is a good spot, right? So that you both are kind of cool. And then if there is like, somebody's like, no, I think I have it here. And the other person's like, no, then you call a TO over, right? And then the TO will clarify and be like, okay, you have the movement. Okay, here you go. Like if somebody's being obstinate or being, you know, a little hard. So their intent deserves to be in the game. The problem is I feel that like we all have a similar intent thought processes, but in other areas of the world, they are played a lot more by intent. For instance, I heard a lot of stuff. Wasn't at the World Championship, so this is a little bit of hearsay, a little bit of gossip. There was a lot of intent play at the World Championship this year, and it didn't rub everyone the correct way. Like some people were not happy by some of the ways that some of the things happened, right? And I feel like intent is a little bit of a cultural thing. Some cultures, which we have to remember as we are playing in Kill Team, that if somebody is from somewhere else or they come from a different gaming group, they might play a little bit different than you. Maybe you use intent a little bit more liberally. Maybe the other person doesn't. And both players need to come to the table and realize that they have to come to some common ground when they're playing with intent, because it is a game and there is a give and take aspect of this game, right? If you just take everything, no one's going to have fun. If you just give everything, you're never going to have fun. There is a give and take, and we have to remember that we're all human beings and we're all playing together, and that, but also we also have to remember that we have to stick up for ourselves and we can't let anyone just walk all over us, right?
Yes.
My intent was not to be blasted. It's like, well, my guy,
you got three people touching bases.
Range, It doesn't matter what you want to say.
I didn't know you could get there. It's like, my Blades of Cain can move 10 inches in torrent. I'm sorry, my guy. I didn't know that. Sorry. I told you at the beginning of the game, you know,
and you had ample opportunities to ask as you were moving.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think the best way to kind of round out a discussion like this is to explicitly define what intent can be used for and how it should be used, and full stop, right? Because I could volunteer kind of how I see it and how I define it to see if that is something that
lines up,
kind of tracks. Yeah. Intent is useful in the game to accurately communicate a very precise game state that not only is something that is your responsibility to call out, but also your responsibility to verify with your opponent. It's not there as a blanket catch-all to protect you from making mistakes or missteps in the game. If an accurate call and return of a specific scenario with intent is not made, then when a TO comes by, as Dakotah stated before, regardless of what was said before, he has to go by with what's on the board. So, example, it might seem tedious to you, but to call out every single model that you move is not within 2 inches of another one is the correct way to do it. And to verify that your opponent sees your ruler between your models 2 inches and says, yes, they're not within 2 inches, is the correct way to do it if that's critically important to your success in that moment. If you don't do that and the board gets bumped, it's on you, unfortunately, right? Similarly, if they were too close together and the board gets bumped and you never called out that they were closer together, then hey, you bumped into a positive in that situation, right? But it's also your responsibility, as I said before, to make sure that your opponent agrees. And this is something that you said very briefly that I do want to call back to, because it's not okay for you to say, well, I told you my intent was to be outside of charge range, and you didn't tell me I wasn't. Right? That's not okay, because it's not your opponent's responsibility to measure and prove your intent. You can ask them to, or you can measure it and say, do you agree that this is outside of 8 inches? And if you ask a very specific question and they don't answer, then it becomes a very uncomfortable situation. And that's when, as you said before, you call the TO over to verify the movement at the point of intent. If your opponent's being a little obstinate, which is not common, but I mean, it could potentially happen, right? So long story short, intent's not to blanket cover any mistake. It's to accurately define a very specific scenario on the board with those parameters confined within that statement of intent. And that's where it ends.
Yeah. So to round out this part, how about we talk about a couple times that we've used intent either correctly or incorrectly, and then we'll talk a little bit about things to watch out for your opponents saying, like, obviously, like blanket statements is a red flag, right? Be like, my intent is never to be blasted. It's like, well, you have custodies, so I'll give it to you. You know, but like, you know, I get it, but like, oh, you're playing Vet Guard. I'm sorry, my guy. Like, I can't agree to that. You know.
Yeah.
G, do you have anything you want to start us off? Do you have anything that you use intent regularly for, or have used it in the past?
Obscuring.
Okay. Yeah.
Like 100% of the time. All right. My goal is to do non-reciprocal shooting. From right here, could you ever get into a position to shoot me back? And then my opponent thinks about it. They measure. I use the laser. Buy it now at lechersworkshop.com. Lasers available $20 each. And
it is a good laser.
It's a great laser. So we measure. We use the laser. We see it. It's good. Obscuring, shooting's all done, taken care of, right? That's how I use intent almost all the time. That's really the only time it comes up for me, actually, I think.
Probably charges too.
Charges too. Like if you're trying to be like, I know you're right here. I don't want you to get within the 8 inches, so I'm going to, is this far enough? And then your opponent verifies the range. They say yes, it's all good.
I think Giacomo's too used to playing intercession.
Yeah.
So
it's insanely easy.
He's actually like
in the same thing. I just have to make sure they can't shoot me back.
Well, he's like he never wants somebody to not charge him.
That's fair. That's fair.
Come at me, bro. Death. Angels of Death wins games.
I can give an example of, this is a little bit Uno reverse card, when I inaccurately responded to someone calling out intent and how I managed that. I was playing a game and someone moved someone somewhere and said, would you be able to shoot this model if he was with a conceal order in this position at any point this turning point?
That's very hard. That's a really hard ask.
That's really,
To me, that is too much to ask. You'd be like, my guy, I'm not going to spend 5 minutes measuring all my guys.
Yeah. Right.
Like that is not that's not my problem to fix. If you want to move there, my guy.
Well, here's a classic example of where I was playing against myself then, because I volunteered to say, okay, I went through all my shooters and I thought I had verified with all my shooters. Like, yeah, no one could do it. The only ones with the movement would be, I don't need to go through all that detail. Long story short, later in the, yeah, exactly. Right. It's just too damn nice, but I overlooked my Dakotah boy being able to, because I was so focused on other guys, I forgot that he would have a long shot, right? I noticed this later in the turning point, and I said, I apologize before when you had asked, blah, blah, blah. I had said that this guy couldn't shoot. I see that he can now. So I leave it up to you. I could take the shot since it's technically valid, or because we agreed, I can just pass with him, or I can do something different with him and just not shoot at that specific model that I said was safe. And my opponent said, you know what, just take the shot. And in the end, he whiffed all the shots. So karma helped out my opponent there, allowing me to. But that's how I handled a game state where I inaccurately called intent, but then saw a viable shot. I left it up to my opponent. And I think that was the best way to handle that. I probably shouldn't have volunteered all that information and all that line of sight checking on my own. But that's how I handled that situation.
So for
That's
me,
very mature of you.
yeah. So for me, I had a game with True at Nova. Shout out to True. He's a homie. He's very good at Vanguard as well. It was a mirror match. And there was like one point in time where I was like, hey, my Melta Rambo is going to go through this door. And there's like, those little alcoves inside of Octarius buildings. Mm-hmm. My intent is to be in this alcove, like as far as I can on conceal. And, it was like the next turning point. He was like, hey, I'm going to shoot this guy. And I was like, oh, remember my intent was to have him in here. Cause I was sitting down. I wasn't trying to like walk around to his side to make sure I was tucked in or pick up the building that had models on also. And then he was like, oh yeah, I remember. And he's like, oh, in that case, I'm going to use the spotter to do that. And I was like, can you see him? And he's like, yeah. So we called the TO over and the TO looked, he's like, yep, yes, he has vision. Cool. You flip him to engage, shot him and he died. Right. Mm-hmm. And like, that is like the way to make sure that when you're using it intent, you want to use it just to be like, cool, bada bing, bada boom. Mm-hmm. Another one that we would use is like that I did.
Can I pause? And I just want to comment on one thing that you said about that. You did not call out the intent. If I tucked in here, would you be able to shoot me?
I would never say that.
I'm just saying that you did not. So the proper response is when he says, okay, well, the spotter can shoot you, blah, blah, blah. Accepting that is the correct thing because the reason why I'm pointing that out is that part of where intent gets pushed out is that someone might then say, it's like, well, clearly I was intending to be so far in that alcove, so I couldn't get shot. So, blah, blah, blah. You said I wouldn't be able to. Clearly my intent was, and trying to push away the spotter activation. And that's part of the issue that we're kind of addressing here, is that your intent was very deliberate, clear, defined, confined to that definition, and anything outside of what you declared in that intent, regardless of what the perceived intent in your mind of being in that alcove, is not valid as an argument against the spotter being able to do their thing. That's correct. What I wanted to call out. So anyway, your second example. Sorry.
I also will say that and for intent, I will never ask somebody never. I want to move to this spot and never be charged this round or whatever, right? Like, I don't think that using the word never is good. I will sometimes move to a spot and be like, hey, do you have anything to give you +1 to charge? No. So you can only charge with 8 inches with that model. Yes. Okay, cool. I'm going to measure 8 inches and I want to be at 9, Mm-hmm. I'm going to be definitely out of range because that's what I'm not going to be at 8.1. I want to be at 9 to guarantee, because I think even saying like, hey, I want to be at 8.1, I think that's rude, right? Like, it's fucking rude.
I must be rude then, because I've definitely done that. I don't think that's unreasonable. You put down 8 inches and you're just outside of 8 inches. I think that's fine.
Yeah, no, I mean, it is fine. It's just sometimes you'd be like, hey, like, I'm going to make sure that I'm not in range. I want us to both make sure that I am never in range. Okay. And if you can get a 9-inch charge later, cool. Another time that I had, I did an intent thing I didn't do an intent thing. This was tried to do against me. I moved a calm. So first turning point, very first action, first action, I moved they chose a escort operative. I moved my model back. They did something. My second action, I moved a comms over and I gave my demo man +1. Their action, they used a cultist psychic witch lady. to give my spotter -1 APL. My next move, I took the demo man and I tried to measure around one side of the building and I couldn't get a bomb off, but I moved the other way and I could blow up 2 devotees. And they asked me, hey, can I take this move back? Because I didn't know you could get to the spot. Right. And I'm like, sorry.
There we go.
No,
I'm sorry.
absolutely not. Yeah.
Yeah. You didn't see this coming. And I mean, I didn't say that, but it is what it is. Right. So like,
yeah.
I think that's like the important things to remember is like, sometimes you can give somebody something like that, but it was a really big game defining play. It was like, they only had 4 devotees left. If I killed those 2, then they only have 2. Right.
Well, it's all about context of when and how and what the game is that question's being asked. Because if it's in a narrative game, casual game with your friends, yeah, just whatever. Yeah, sure, no problem. Yeah, you just change your activations, like all that. But when it's a game with stakes and people are competing to ensure that as a way of testing their skill, then it's entirely up to you and completely valid. Whatever you decide, whether you let them walk it back or not, whether you're going to be graceful in that moment, or not be graceful, whether you're going to choose to give them that move back or be firm to the fact that they missed something that is very clear that you're doing. And I mean, you even gave an APL to the model at that point. You pointed at the model. You actioned onto that model, the demo man. So there's really very, very narrow arguments to, I mean, I would say 0 argument to walk back an activation. So that way you didn't get the devotees.
Yeah. That opponent was also very graceful. He was like, okay, and I mean, it was a game defining moment and they realized that, or they probably lose the game at that point. Right. Very graceful on that side too. So like you can always ask, don't be afraid.
I was about to say that.
Ask, right?
You can always ask is what I was about to say. There's no harm in asking. Worst case scenario, you still lose the devotees, right?
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I think intent definitely belongs in Kill Team and there's certain ways to use it. But as a TO, I've seen it abused quite a lot, but I've also seen some TOs kind of go Nazi on it. And I don't mean to say Nazi lightly. Like some tournaments would say absolutely no playing by intent, or a bunch of other kind of crazy, absolutely insane rules. And I don't think that you should be modifying as a TO. I don't think that you should be modifying the game to say that intent is not allowed, because like, why would you go to a tournament that's going to be, you know what I mean? Like, are you not supposed to communicate with your opponent?
Yeah.
There are certain ways that you can go about saying certain things, and it's about educating a player when you see it being done incorrectly as a TO. That is our job. If we see something, we say something.
Yeah, I think that's so true. You can't just get rid of it because there's a very clearly defined benefit and purpose to playing with intent. Getting rid of it entirely completely gets rid of the misuse, but then it also complicates the scenarios where there's benefit of communicating that intent.
Yeah, agreed. It kind of goes with like, yeah, I'm gonna not talk about those tournaments anymore. We'll just focus on the positive. Eric, did you already speak on this?
No.
Let's go, homie. Let's fucking go.
Well, thank you. So originally when we were Dakotah and I were talking about this, Emmanuel and G, this was right after a tournament. It was a local tournament that I went to. A lot of Plasma Spam members were there. We went to go see Adrian Martin, who is
love Adrian.
Yeah, he's the leader of Victory Gamers and hosts a lot of tournaments. What really got me thinking about intent and where the game has evolved, like all 3 of you have stated in this podcast for the listeners, is I was playing a teammate of mine, and this isn't his fault. It's because of how the game has evolved since it started. he was playing Greenskins, or no, I was playing Greenskins and he was playing Commandos, and he really didn't play much into Greenskins. His name is Liam. He's one of the Garretts, and if you know a Garrett, they're very good at kill team.
They sure are.
I think it's genetic.
They beat me.
Dude, they're nasty. But so he's a little nervous because one of the tournaments before we had a little bit of not an altercation, but a dispute about something. And I told him before the game started, look, like that was then. It was our fault. We didn't communicate about it properly, and we were fine. But I just didn't want him to feel negative or any negative effects from the last game going into this game. So it was at the end of Turning Point 1, we were on Into the Dark, and he had a Dakotah boy that he dashed right behind a light, a barrier. And he asked me, now, again, I'm defending him in a way. My hearing is not the best, so I could have misheard him. But what I thought he asked me was, if I move my Dakotah boy here, you can never successfully actually charge me, correct? From where you are right now. And I said, yes, from where I am right now. And he was like, okay. So the turn ended. We go into Turning Point 2. I get the initiative, and I take my boss, who had a boss pool. I moved him, I dashed him, and I was within an inch of the model to then use the Combi Scorcher and tag him in the Breacha. And he brought up, oh, well, I thought we said as long as I'm more within like an inch behind here that you really can't get to him or charge him. And I said, yeah, for the last turn. And that's where the communication and intent was kind of bad on both of our parts. And it kind of led to like, well, I'm definitely able to do this because I measured it right. But because of the previous event that we had for a golden ticket, I didn't want it to be sour. This is one of my teammates. This is a good friend of mine. I've gotten to know him for a year and like a couple months at this point. I didn't want him to feel like the game mattered more than our friendship and what we've developed. And I said, you know what? It's okay, because it's really not that big of a deal. And I just told him, going forward, I said maybe it was my hearing, or I said there was a lack of communication between the two, and throughout the rest of the game, there was never a lack of communication. We were very good with that, and that was probably the one bad time I had with overall intent and communication with me playing in a game. I'm never going to be at the top table. I will never try to be there. I'm there to just chill and roll dice, but that was the one time I would say negatively that kind of made me think about where the game is at the moment and how it has evolved since the beginning and how it has changed a lot in many ways. And then kind of going back to, oh, well, I kind of messed up. Maybe I didn't want to move this model as far because now I know that he can actually get to me. And then also maybe kill the Breacha boy as well. Because I believe, Dakotah, we played at Nova, and from what I remember, our communication was spot on, and there was no shaky intent rules or anything. I think we had a really good time from what I remember.
Yeah, I remember your demo man guy, your blast charge killing my Melta, and then I only in death and killed him back, and it was very
yes,
fun.
he did.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, communication failure is a part of the game. It's a part, like I went to school and I graduated with a communication degree, right? And my wife tells me continuously that I'm a horrible communicator.
But you know exactly how you're horrible. That's where the degree comes in.
Exactly. So I think that like somebody without a degree in communication might not know little tips and tricks that I do. And I think that's completely fine. I think that's completely okay. And I think that as long as communication stays open between two players, you guys can work through any kind of issues, right? Because I've had sweaty ass games before, like got a little sweaty at Nova, it is what it is. But I think
the game shop just doesn't have their air conditioning on.
Yeah, like I won't say the game shop's name. But yeah, I mean, I think that with overall, what I think we're trying to say is just be careful how you use intent. I think intent is a great point of the game. It's a great way to find common ground between both players. Just make sure that the game state is in its correct state. When you ask somebody something, and I think gotchas are also okay. Some teams have them built in. Corsair player is never going to remind you that they have a 3-inch interrupt dash to charge, right? They're not. Like, there are certain things that are just innately going to happen. As a Pathfinder, should always tell you that they can blow you up on turn 1 because they can. And they're back. Oh, yay.
That's how you really feel, Dakotah.
If I did, it would take another hour, and it would just I would be labeled a Xenoist. Yeah, little blue people.
Well, we'll be in Vegas, so you'll find plenty of blue men there.
Exactly. They're actually they're actually a great show.
Oh, they really are.
Yeah, they are better than Tau. I do think that, like, overall, like what we are trying to communicate to you listening is that it's okay to have intent in the game. Just make sure that you're using it correctly and you're not overusing it, and you're not asking opponent never, because if you say never, you're going to lead yourself. You're in that same realm of like, hey, I don't want to ever be in the wrong. I don't want to mess up. I don't want you to have a gotcha. It's unfair to ask your opponents. Like, you can ask your opponents again, do you have an extra dash? Do you have this? Do you have that? But like, it's unfair to ask somebody any kind of a never question. It's just not cool. It's rude. No, it's not rude.
And I guess I'm a cautionary tale, inadvertently teaching the example of how not to over respond to intent that's asking a little bit too much.
Yes. And hey, here's the thing. If you just want to have a great game, tell your opponents everything you can do and just have fun.
Absolutely.
If you're trying to win, you have to hold some stuff back. But if you're a really good player, you don't have to hold anything back, and you're going to beat them anyways. So you have to find that inner balance between what you want to do. Just don't hold things back maliciously.
Yes.
And I think that's important in both narrative and casual and everything, because this happens. We've all heard about the sweaty game store player who like never leaves the game store and just tries and beats everyone too, right? So I mean, it happens in all walks of life, and what we're trying to tell you is ways to be able to deal with those kinds of players, those people, because they exist. We're all humans. We're playing a competitive game, so just realize that.
I guess an analogy for that, I'm thinking about it. So it might not be a perfect analogy, but if you're playing Texas Hold'em and someone asks, like, wait, with the 5 and the 6 and the 7, if you have an 8 and a 9, is that a straight? You say yes. You don't tell them that you have an 8 and a 9 in your hand.
Yeah.
But you could you answer yes. So I think that's a good way to kind of bridge
excellent
that whole
analogy. Yeah. Excellent.
Thank you, Dakotah.
Yes. Do you guys have any other things you guys want to talk about intent, or should we move on to the next little bit?
Ooh, I just think this is the one last thing that I'll say.
Yeah.
And this is kind of what we've already went over as a community between TOs and community organizers and trying to build up maybe their store, is how do we go forward with using it, and what tends to be acceptable that needs to be asked, not only in this country, but the other continents that are part of the playtesters that play the game and that are popular, like Spain, Poland, Australia, and just mostly Europe. What can be done in the future? Because like you said, we're never going to get rid of it. but how can it be used effectively to where no one feels like it's being taken advantage of?
So I think that it's going to be different in every region. We're never all going to agree because we all come from different cultures. Culturally, Americans believe in something, different than people in France, different than people in Germany, right? Like, I think that, that like we might have a lot of similarities. Like America probably has the most similarities with like Britain and Australia, right? Maybe. But I think that we have to see what works within our own cultures and what works between each other. And I think that being more educated on the subject is probably the best way, because, there might be some places that don't have as much experience as, like the American circuit. I find that I do not run into a lot of intent on the West Coast, at least in our scene or in the BAT scene. That's where I've played quite a few tournaments there. Mm-hmm. And I have not ran into a lot of intent. Like,
yeah, I would echo that.
In the wrong way, right? Like when I've gone to the East Coast, there's been a couple of times where I was like, hey, like, let's make sure there's this. Like there's going to be different areas and different ways of doing things. Or like playing against somebody from France or playing against somebody from, they obviously flew all the way out to America to play. So you want to accommodate them as much as possible so that your conflicts don't happen. I think it's impossible to have everyone on the same page. I've tried to get all the TOs on the same page for multiple different things, and I failed each and every time. So I don't think that having every single player in the world function on the same page, I not only think it's bad, because I think having difference of ideas leads to like progress, but I don't think that everyone in the world is going to do the same way. Because what if France does it better? What if Greece does it better? We don't know, and we don't speak their language. So like if somebody else out there has a podcast, like we might not even understand what they're saying. So, and vice versa.
Well, I speak Greek and I used to live there, and I don't remember Warhammer ever being there. So I'm pretty sure they don't do intent better than us. Yeah. But I'm going to disagree with a little what you said, Dakotah, because I think that I really do think that it is something that should be standardized, at least the extent of intent, because when you see different clusters, different regions, different metas evolving out different habits, it usually starts with the ambassador or ambassadors that brought folks in and kind of cultivated those habits. There's a reason why there's regional differences, whether it's just the habits that form, whether it's a cultural thing, who knows, right? But there is a correct and an incorrect way to play a competitive sport, right? Like you can talk about the Texas Hold'em example. You can say, well, my intent is to never step out of bounds when I play football or basketball. It's like, yeah, but your shoe's on the line or it's over the line, right? So there are boundaries, pun unintended there, to where intent should and shouldn't be used. And for now, it seems like it's up to the TOs to make that call, because it's ultimately going to come down to a TO solving that dispute when the degree of use of intent is not reciprocated across the board.
I have the best counter to you.
Go for it.
Okay, I don't think that everyone doing the same thing is good, specifically for this analogy. I think most of the rest of the world plays on Octarius, right? And a lot of Octarius people think it's, the bee's knees, even though it's getting boring, right? But I think differently, and I push my own terrain, and I actively think that my terrain is some of the better terrain out there. And I think some people on this podcast have agreed in the past before. I think that if I just thought the same, as everyone else in Games Workshop, we would never have the progression that is specific terrain built for Kill Team or built for competitive play. And I think that if I just would think the same as everyone else and just went along with what everyone else thought, this progression never would have happened. So I think that people thinking in different ways about intent isn't a bad thing, because some places might do it worse, and I think some people might do it better. So I think that having a difference of opinion is always better.
Yeah. Well, I'll counter your counter with another counter. I'm gonna call out you're a blue deck
casting counter.
No, this is more of just an orc continually bashing his head into the force field until the power grid fails on its own.
He's playing red-green and has abilities to counter blue spells.
There it is.
Oh, more colorblind.
I understood that. I didn't at all. But God damn it, Dakotah, what was I talking about?
You were going to counter my counter.
And I forgot the counter. You did. It was, I hurt myself in my confusion. Oh my goodness, what was my Oh, yes. There's a very funny video of an Italian chef on a British talk show getting offended when someone calls his Italian dish like a British carbonara because it had a creamy sauce in it. He responded hilariously, "If my grandmother had wheels, then she'd be a bike. It makes no sense. You can't just make that comparison just because of a similarity." And my counter would be that the terrain's a different topic, and disagreements and other ideas in that absolutely different from different perspectives with intent. But I can go along with you on that example and say that there's clearly bad terrain configurations, right? You can look at a board and just say, yes, this is not a healthy way to... Well, even just setting up, like you could take your terrain and set it up in a way it's like, whew, yeah, this is not a good game. I've done that. I've messed around with your terrain and used my own like kind of manifestations of layouts, or tried to use your terrain to copy like a tabletop tactics layout, and just didn't turn out well. So there are ways to have different opinions that are wrong. I'm not at all saying that there is only one. Sorry, what's a better way to say this? I'm not at all saying that it's not a good idea to have a conversation and have contrasting opinions on this, but when push comes to shove, there's going to be something that is clearly a healthier, better way to approach the game. And the differing opinions in the conversation gets you to that point that's better for all involved. That's what I'm saying. And that's what I'm trying to get at when I say that there really should be some uniformity or some accepted norm for intent when it all boils down. And if France or Greece has a better way to handle intent, then hell yeah, let's do it, right? Not willing to stick my heels in and just die on this hill, but I have seen bad examples and I have seen bad habits, and those are the ones that should be pushed away from to a more acceptable norm.
Snuffed out of existence.
In a way, just like the Tau.
So Dakotah's terrain is the town bicycle? What? No, I got you.
Only if the wheels are on a grandma.
All right,
if you put Dakotah's terrain on a grandma, does that
it makes it a bicycle?
It makes it a bicycle. If you've learned anything on this podcast, it's not too late to buy a late.
I think Emmanuel cast confused, and now I'm bashing my head against the wall confused.
That's right. Hell yeah.
So we have a question from Eric, and then we're going to do a couple Patreon questions. We have 3 Patreon questions.
Oh, fun.
But Eric, you asked us before the podcast started. What recent tournaments we've participated in or held over the holidays, and kind of talk about a couple of those. I know you guys just did one. Pathfinder's one. Ruined it. Spoiler. Sorry.
Well, from what I heard, wasn't there edible terrain that got removed over the course of the game?
That is one reason why Pathfinder's
okay, so we're starting with me. Okay.
Yeah,
we are.
go for it.
Sorry. I thought you guys were going to talk about. All right. So yes, this year. Well, let me restate. Plasma Spam, specifically Orion and I, the last 2 years now, wanted to make a very fun thematic event that wasn't narrative, but around the holidays, sometimes people can get stressed about money or going to see family, all those things. And a lot of us, I think you can agree, use Kill Team as a way to get away, can just relax, play a game. A lot of us like the rolling the dice mechanic and feeling how a certain kill team actually performs, and how I'm sure a lot of you can agree right now to where kill teams actually function more like how they are in the lore compared to some of the armies in 40K at the moment. So you really get to feel a lot more of the models. And so Orion and I got talking about a year ago about creating a Christmas event to where you can play normally, but then create gingerbread light terrain to where throughout the game, for one command point, it would be a tactical ploy. You could use it at any time. You remove one piece of terrain that was only light, and that was gingerbread, and you'd eat it. So you could have models hide behind the
I like the clarification that it had to be gingerbread as well. Just pick up your opponent's barricaded plastic and just
it happens all the time. And it was so we did that last year, and we had about 20 players, and we got a lot of good feedback from it. And
that's rad.
Yeah. So beside last year we had, ugly sweater, best thematic person and best painted, stuff like that. This year we went out a little bit more. Not only did we have the terrain supplied by Angel and Orion, but we also had Orion created some equipment to where you'd have presence on the board as well. And it would be a free mission action if you were within 1 inch of it and not within engagement range of an enemy model. You'd roll a D3, and there were certain different things that could come out. You could have a snowball. You could have the mighty candy cane, which was like a melee weapon. You had the nutcracker, which was a gun. If you incapacitated a model, they actually turned themselves into a gingerbread piece of terrain. You also had Santa's sleigh ride, which was kind of neat, where you'd like walk through models like you had Fly kind of, and each model you'd run through would suffer D3 plus 1 mortal wound. So, just creating a really nice atmosphere. We also had, which Orion also contributed, was a whole Into the Dark board, completely Christmas style, with snow, Christmas trees, and even LED lights around, which was really neat. And we also had, I really wish, Dakotah, that we actually got more in tune with our schedule for doing the hobby track, because the amount of teams that came out customized for this event this year were absolutely insane. And
we definitely got to.
Yeah, I'll send you pictures later of some of the teams. I mean, there were goblins, there were the Hand of Archon models dressed up completely as elves with candy canes. There were candy cane barricades. There was a whole display board. I mean, the whole nine. And we doubled in capacity this year, just about. We had 30 players. And if you're ever running an event, if you have, I would say, over like 20 something players, you definitely need more than one TO, because by the end, I was gassed, man. I don't know how you do these multiple day events and still have energy at the end of it.
It's the way you do that is
caffeine.
Practice, my friend. Practice. Started off with security, being on your feet all day, and keeping your brain active, and then, just doing it over and over and over, it gets easier. Trust me. The more you do it, the easier it gets. It's just like a tournament. The more tournaments you go to, the more your brain is used to the amount of stress that you put on it. Giacomo, we went to Christmas event very recently, and we just had Chris Baki on the past 2 episodes, and it was his tournament. Gee, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I do. I got to meet a lot of people who listen to the show. Shout out to them. Thank you all for coming out, making the event very fun. The store itself, well stocked. Holy crap! I've never seen a store stocked with more Kill Team things. It was nuts.
It was. Mad Alpaca Games.
Mad Alpaca Games, man. I wore my poncho and everything.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. The name of the game shop? That is amazing.
Yeah, I have their dice somewhere.
Gee, what did you win in that?
Best painted. And a box of Felgor in the random raffle.
Hell yeah. Congrats on the best painted. That was with your Kazakhin, right?
Yes.
Oh, they're amazing, dude. I got to see them. I got to see them in real meat space at the Squad Games holiday party. You
did. Instagram wargaming_studios if you want to see them.
Yeah. So I'll tell you a shout out before we go to Emmanuel. KTC had a really interesting one. I was talking to Eric about. KTC had they wasn't a Secret Santa, or it was kind of like a white elephant. Yeah, it was a white elephant, but if you beat your opponent, you could steal their present, but no one knew what it was until like the final round, or just before the final round. So like, if you stole your opponent, like packages every time you beat them, like you didn't know what you were gonna get. So that's pretty interesting, pretty cool. I heard they had like 40 something players show up to it. So impressive as always.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Pacific Northwest. Yeah, I think we had 33 players at the Merry Mayhem. And then Emmanuel, you went to a holiday party quite recently.
Yeah. Do
you want to talk about that?
Absolutely. Yeah. The Squad Games holiday party was super fun. I really enjoyed that. I remember the conversation started. You were going to have a tournament around that time, but with lead up to LVO and kind of a lack of a push to kind of get it done, just because of a lot of folks having other stuff going on around the holiday season. You canned the idea, and I said, "Yeah, let's just do a holiday party instead." You're like, "Shit, that's a great idea." You hosted it at a shop that was fairly new in your area, Loaded Dice. Love that shop. Really great space.
They made us affiliates, by the way, if anyone wants to buy from a local shop rather than FLG.
Oh, that's awesome.
Order through our affiliate link, but it's only online orders. If you order in store, we don't get the credit.
Okay. Noted. I love that. Great store though. I ended up getting bought something from there, the Sherlock Holmes cooperative board game. I've been looking for it everywhere. That Loaded Game's also pretty well stocked with Kill Team stuff too, but you had just a bunch of terrain around. People were just playing some casual games. You did a white elephant with our team, our Kill Team / club Southern Discomfort. We did a Secret Santa at the event too. Really, really fun time. Ended up not playing Kill Team at it, just came to hang out. Met a lot of people that I hadn't met yet, and Aiden was there too. A lot of other folks. It was really fun. I enjoyed that quite a bit, and I'm a huge fan of making that, nudging you to make that an annual thing, because I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was definitely a blast. We had a lot of fun there too.
Yeah, and it's really fun just to hang out with a lot of folks that you just see and just do Kill Team with all the time and find out other random stuff about it. Like, who knew that so many people were into the Renaissance Fair, right? Mm-hmm. Now I know that you guys are not allowed to go next year without me, especially because it's right in my backyard. Yeah, we're like 15 minutes away from me when you were there, and I found out like 2 days later. But just fun stuff like that to find out about all these people that share this silly hobby.
Absolutely. So we'll move on to the Patreon questions near the end of our episode. we have we have 3 of them today. We are blessed. We have one from David, and that is, what Squad Games opinions? You guys are also a part of Squad Games right now because you're on the podcast, so feel free to please answer these as well. What is Squad Games opinions on whether guard should be brought out of close quarters or adapted to the current Overwatch to allow for point blank Overwatches on open boards, since we're moving into an open board with Beta D?
This has come up a few times, especially when ITD was new, and I'm a hard no on that for one specific reason. And part of it might be Pathfinders, but in a greater sense, guard works on Into the Dark because the narrow scope of what that guard can accomplish. It's a very small cone that actually allows them to have an effect. But once you translate that out to an open board, and anyone can be on guard, it's too hard to balance for. Shooty teams become way more shooty. And it's already a challenge on open board for melee teams to cross that gap. So shooty teams don't need more help preventing that gap. That's my take.
What if melee teams win LVO?
Still.
I will agree with you. I think the one reason why you don't have it is Pathfinders, is Novitiates, is Vetguard, is Kasser
Kings.
Kasser Kings. These overwhelming powerhouses of shooting. If you give them the ability to just go on guard for, be like, oh, if you charge me, I'm going to shoot you, or any other way on an open board, is when they already have an advantage, is going to be pretty detrimental to pretty much any other team. Because if it's just a normal guard, I have 3 Pathfinders on guard right now. It's like, okay, well, I'm going to take my plasma and I'm going to move it up here. Oh, now he gets shot and dies. Cool. It just makes it so much harder for elite teams, because it's like now there's like no counterplay. I definitely think it would be the wrong choice for open. And I will say that I don't think that Beta D is going to be competitive. So I don't think that we have to worry about it.
Yeah, I would agree with that on Beta Decima. But I will say that the middle chunk of what David was asking is probably the most important thing to think on, because in a roundabout way, the reason why guard is part of this is because Overwatch is underwhelming, incredibly underwhelming. There are some teams that can make some decent use out of it, but far and few between. Overwatch is more often than not just an underwhelming thing. I think that, especially with elite teams, a way to make Overwatch feel more substantial would benefit the game. But guard isn't the answer. And to answer your question, what if melee teams win LVO? Guard's not the solution to that.
just a plethora of nerfs.
No, the solution is -1 Pathfinder operative. That's a solution.
You're right.
What if you're eligible for Overwatch, then a model moves in, and as if it was in guard, it shoots, and now it's no longer eligible to fire Overwatch, and you can only do this once per activation per guy that has over. I think I'm explaining that weirdly.
If guard was the new Overwatch, essentially.
If you changed Overwatch to be that, like, let's say you got 3 Space Marines that are eligible to fire Overwatch, right? Because they've already activated, your opponent's playing more than 10 guys. Somebody passes through, then they finish their they finish their action, then you have the ability to take a shot because of, guard rules mixing with Overwatch. But now that guy can never fire Overwatch again for that round because he's already been eligible and shot. Instead of having to, okay, it's your turn to take an activation or take an Overwatch shot. Because realistically, you're not doing anything. You're either going to be passing because you can't take a shot, or you take the shot, right?
Mm-hmm.
So why not just mix it sort of in?
Free,
it's like an interruption. Yeah.
It's a free guard, but only if you are able to do Overwatch.
Correct.
Yeah, so you can't.
I think if you spend a CP, maybe, but I think like just giving pretty much all operatives like track target is kind of shitty.
Well, I mean, think of it in the context of what he's saying, though, because it's when you're eligible for Overwatch, so it's when you have fewer models. So a very wide team like Pathfinders or Vetguard, they're not going to have that opportunity.
They're never going to have it.
Unless they're on the ropes. And let's face it, if
they're on the ropes, they need help.
If Vetguard is eligible for Overwatch into intercession, then they done fucked up Aaron.
Yeah, they must have blasted themselves with a demo man.
Yeah, let that las gun fire. Forget it. Just let it happen. But I think that it's an interesting thought. It's definitely better than just blanket guard, because then it can't be used aggressively, right? It's not used at the beginning of the turning point. It's used for a team that is behind on activations, so that way they remain relevant later into the turning point. Because Overwatch right now, like I never give Overwatch. As a Commandos player,
right? You're gonna go like, I'm gonna pass you, but my turn isn't gonna end where you can Overwatch. So this way, you end your move, your dash, your move. Okay, you're eligible to be shot. I'm gonna do it now. Then if I don't kill you, okay, you continue the rest of your activation.
Yeah. And you could still deny all that, but it would restrict what you were able to do. So in effect, that model who's in Overwatch with this quasi guard would then still have relevance to the game state, because you're restricting the movement of your opponent because of that potential interruption from your Overwatch. I think it has legs. It's an interesting idea. I really like it. It can probably be broken in a way that the internet will yell at us in the comments after this. But as an initial like first thought, first pass, I kind of dig it, and I'd be willing to explore that further.
I'm thinking that it would buff the middle teams the most because it helps them versus hordes. Mm-hmm. Which I don't know if that's a good thing. The normal teams, just like 10 operatives, 8 operatives, 9. I don't know if scouts need to get Overwatch against teams that they're already pretty decent into. I mean, not Overwatch, but guard into on open. I think that it has an interesting side play for it, but it would change the way that horde teams function entirely, and I don't know if that's would be healthy for people even wanting to play a horde team at that point in time, because it just kind of stops all of everything. It's like, oh well, now I have 10 operatives that can possibly shoot you, not just 6. Just give him armor and contempt, and we'll be fine.
Boo!
That's a different thing altogether. Be willing to experiment.
Yeah. We'll
It
move on to
limited.
Question 2.
It could be limited to certain army sizes, perhaps. Maybe.
Yeah,
I say no. I think it shouldn't be in open at all. But that's because I like melee teams. I like a challenge. And I think if shooting teams, I mean, overall, let's be honest, besides melee summer and going into...
Hey, homie, we still could be in melee winter. Everyone thinks it's the winter of bullets, but we don't know.
But like leading up most of Kill Team, which teams dominated for majority of Kill Team 2021 version?
Well, check this counter to that. So let's say you are a melee team. You're probably not going to be in engage until you're right about to charge them, right? Mm-hmm. Which means you've done your action to charge. Now they're no longer available to shoot because they're within engagement range, right? And then let's add something further to Overwatch. You can't choose to Overwatch anymore. It just happens if your opponent puts themselves in that position. It's no longer an activation to choose to Overwatch or something,
I don't know. Like, I see where you're going with it a little bit, but majority of the shooting teams, like the good shooting teams, like we brought up Pathfinders, Casterkin, maybe even, Dakotah and I talked about this at Nova, and I was like, hot take, Hearthkin are actually kind of good, and while I didn't play them great, you saw them win two golden tickets. So, like, imagine some guns that ignore obscurity.
You hurt me. You hurt me.
I'm just saying. Look. I'm not the right pilot. I'm not the right pilot for them. But
I mean, one of those wins has an asterisk. All right.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, look. I'm man. You're going down the rabbit hole you don't want to go down.
What kind of question was this?
We'll move on to question 2 before we jump.
So Giacomo, I think I also like the idea that you have to Overwatch, but you have to either Overwatch or pass with someone who could Overwatch.
And so then they can't Overwatch again.
Correct. Yeah. If you would give them something powerful like track target equivalent with their Overwatch, that when you have the opportunity, you either pass with someone that would be eligible. Yada yada. I like that idea.
Right. So you can sort of bait, like, okay, he's probably going to try to Overwatch. I'm going to bait it. He's not going to do it. All right, it's over now. They can't fire it again.
Yes, correct. Yeah. There's ways to rules smith that into a fun interaction. I'd be willing to homebrew a game or two like that.
I think Overwatch definitely needs a little bit of needs to be touched a tad, because it would be nicer if it was better, but I don't know if that's the answer.
It just needs to be more active. There needs to be more agency to the Overwatching player, in my opinion.
Yeah. So we'll move to a second question from Rob. So he's asking, he's seen people on Discord and Reddit say things like a great use of color theory on models. Is that something that we could explain in color theory? I think I can, to a relatively decent way. How about you fellas?
I can do it in a very simple way. And then, I was going to say, Giacomo, you can get way more complex about it as a more accomplished painter than me. But I was going to go for the basics, but you take it away. You go for it.
Well, okay, so basics are, you have your rule of thirds, complementaries and everything. But let's look at the simplest way to do it. Start with your 3 primary colors. You have yellow, red, and blue. In order to make a secondary color, you mix 2 of the primary colors together. And then in order to make, I think it's called Terry something.
Trishandary.
Trishandary or something is like the 3rd color. You mix a secondary with a primary. So if you know those 3 rules and you know how to make colors, red and yellow make orange, you can discover your little triangle of colors right from there. You do need to use a wheel. In fact, actually, once you have a wheel, a color wheel, it's even easier. Just draw a triangle. Mm-hmm. And you can sort of see what colors are going to complement them. Now, there's a further trick I learned from a different painter is once you have your primary colors or the 3 colors you're going to use, try using a mix of the same colors. In fact, you can almost make your palette of colors really small because you're just going to be blending colors together. That alone can bring a lot of uniformity to a model once you know those colors. Yeah, that's my quick take on that.
So I have a quick take. It's very simple. You go on Google and you type in, let's say that you want to run Space Marines with a cold white, like main primary color. So you would type in like cold white color scheme, right? And usually things will pop up with like 5 or 6 different colors, right? Or you can do, something else. And those will usually come up with your secondaries, your tertiaries, and all those kinds of things and colors that look good together. You can typically follow those little color palettes and you can usually paint a really nice model. Like understanding color theory is a lot of people just go to school for. You have to have a color wheel. You have to know what all these like weird terms are, but in essence, the easiest way to try and figure something out, if you don't know what paints to color your team, you can just search like a something on Google, and it'll help a lot. I've done that with my terrain sets, and certain models and stuff like that. Especially as a colorblind person, it definitely helps a lot.
I mean, that's definitely a valid point, but I think for Rob's question specifically, he's more of like, what do they mean when people are saying use of color theory? And so it's the design of looking at something and going, everything blends so well. Why is that? It's because of color choices, which when you Google it, as Dakotah mentioned, the person who's giving you those lists of stuff did the color theory and found the right colors, or at least the preferred colors. So technically still the correct answer. When what's Dakotah saying? Just this is with a little more context.
Yeah, I think another thing that's really important is that whenever you use a complementary color, you want to use not a lot of that complementary color. Typically,
I was going to get into that. Yeah,
red and green are complementary, but if you put too much red and too much green on a model, you look like Christmas.
Yep.
Right. So if you're going to have a green model, there's a reason why orcs have the red lips or red eyes, and then if you're going to have a red model, there's a reason why they have sometimes just like a little bit of green somewhere, because it just helps. Emmanuel, you have something?
Yeah. I learned color theory in a very cheat way. I went on Google and I printed out a color wheel and I just taped it up on my wall by my paint rack. And there's two general principles to color theory. And the essence of color theory, as I understand it, as someone who's hacking his way into understanding it, is it's about building your color palette by creating interesting contrast with an accent that complements your primary color, kind of like what Dakotah was saying, that you don't want to go heavy on both. You want to choose your primary color. And one thing I read that really inspired me was your primary color. I never had a choice in my primary color because I wanted to paint green orcs, right? And there's a lot of skin on these guys, right? So my palette is restricted in a sense because of the type of...
He's trying to fuck over colorblind people.
No, because of the lore that I'm holding to. But other folks will do red orcs, blue orcs, that kind of stuff. That's all over the place. But I digress. The easiest way, and the reason why I started with Red Suns, Evil Suns orcs, is that when I was learning about color theory, I said, oh, well, I'm going to do some splashes of armor panels and some accents of red on the model to kind of do like a 80-20, 90-10% between the primary to in that ratio of the primary to the secondary accent color, plus all the browns and all the other crap that goes on these orcs, right? That's the easiest way to first engage with color theory, is just going to the color wheel and just choosing a color that's on the opposite side or close to the opposite side of your primary color. That's going to be the complement. And the triangle that G was talking about is using either like kind of split complementary colors or doing like a triatric, I think they call it, selection where, triadric, something like that, where you literally draw a triangle from your primary and you just do a triangle, and they could either be close to each other, the opposite side, the complements, or far spaced. But you want to go like, it's like 60, 30, 10 or 60, 25, 15, as far as your ratios of your primary to one of the accents to another one of the accents. You never want to evenly split that stuff out. And you can really tell this from stuff like Tau models, right? Ugh, I can't believe I'm saying that. But there are always small accents on these mecha battle suits that are primarily just one color. So you want to hold true to that as well. And the final thing that was super interesting that I read is, well, what if my primary color is not a color, but it's a tone? Like it's gray, it's black, it's whatever, white. The accent color you choose should evoke kind of like an emotion.
Yes.
Like blues are kind of cool and calming. Reds are kind of aggressive, or like maybe angry. purples are kind of sinister, greens are kind of like magical or alien in a sense. So depending on like when someone looks at your Black Space Marines, what kind of emotion do you want to evoke from that? That's kind of the direction you go, whether it's cool or warm colors, and then kind of where on that cool or warm, kind of what emotion you want it to evoke.
Yeah, that's what I was going to mention next, but you got it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Eric, do you have anything you want to add?
They literally took the warm and cold colors from me. I'm not a color wheel theorist. Unfortunately, I'm sorry, but I will say, I was talking to Will Hahn during Kill Team Open 2, and I put up models for competition, and these were models that I painted in less than 24 hours before the event. I had to wait for some of the basing products to arrive from the UK, and so I had less than 24 hours to paint. And he came over to me and he was talking to me about warm colors and cool colors, and he liked the concept that I was going for, but also said, like there's some things you need to work on. And I would say getting feedback from not only professional painters, but just people that have been in the hobby longer than you can really go a long way. Don't be afraid to ask your fellow hobbyists or players that you see, weekly at your store, how can I get better, or what would have you done differently too? Because then you're getting different aspects and thoughts about painting in general too, which can be very helpful in the long run.
Absolutely.
Jinx. I want to ask one question to you guys since we're on the topic of colors. Do you guys know whether you're a summer or a winter?
I don't know, but I want to know.
Giacomo, you've told me this before, and I don't remember.
All right. It generally comes down to looking at your skin and seeing
Is this the shit that you're saying that you have like green in your skin?
Yes.
You're an orc?
Yes, or you have olive tones in my skin. Those are generally warmer, so you'd be a summer. Where if you look at someone with really pale skin, and you can generally see more blue hues just looking at their skin, they're a winter. So you can do that experiment with yourself by looking at your hand, your arm, whatever, and you guys decide what you are. This will also help you choose outfits.
I am definitely a summer tone.
You are a summer tone, yes.
I can definitely see like winter tones better than summer tones.
That would make sense because of your color deficiency.
Mm-hmm.
He's a fake colorblind person.
Yeah, like Giacomo keeps telling me he has green in his skin, and I'm like, "Yo, dude, you're not on work. Like, shut the fuck up."
Holy shit! Oh my god!
You've not noticed the green and red flecks on Giacomo's skin?
Yeah.
They don't exist.
I'm a fucking Cool Ranch Dorito.
Makes sense the way you paint, my guy. Moving on to the final question. We have it from Melty. Shout out to you, homie. Quick, this one should be pretty quick. Do you guys have any fun kit bash ideas, kind of going forward that you plan on doing this year or soon?
Going to be something I already did.
Orc Scouts.
I mean, yes, I did just finish that this weekend, but it's actually that Legionary, or not Legionary, whatever the new team that they showed with the Night Lords. They had one of the guys with a Space Marine on a stick, and then they talked about how he does like some weird voice thing with the Space Marine. I had this third-party grot holding a megaphone, so I scratch built an amp for him to stand on and gave him a rock and painted it orange like a DS1 distortion pedal.
Hey, nice.
Yeah, and he's just standing on the amp screen. The Wazacraft.
You could do that. I was just gonna say, like, I straight up own a modded one that somebody made and I bought online.
Oh no shit! Yeah, no, I just have
the old DS ones that had the weird
college.
electronics. Yeah. I mean, the Wazacraft ones are good too. Anyways, that was a tangent. So going back to your amp.
Yeah. So he's just a grot standing on an amp, evoking that Space Marine on a stick. So that's my fun kit bash I've done.
I have a box of Felgor, and I thought about Krampus, so I'm going to try to do that by next year.
Oh, fun! I dig that.
For me, I think I already talked about what I want to do for Kasserkin. More action hero Kasserkins. But Actionkin. But outside of them, I think a fun one, but I think I'm going to get written the book for this one. Turning in like my Votan that I have, making them like Snow White and the Seven Dwarves.
I love it.
I think would be quite fun, but I'm definitely going to get written in the book for that one.
You definitely are.
You got to 3D print the actual dwarves. Yeah.
No, you do not. No. Stop endorsing this.
I mean, I guess the other 3 could just be with like the helmets, and the other ones are exposed, so you can see like who they are, and I think I could live with that.
Well, Snow White's there. You got Prince Charming, and you got the Witch. Boom.
Oh, okay. Hey, good save.
Definitely need new heads, but yeah.
Make it so. Make it so.
I don't think I want to do that one. I just thought of it.
Yeah. You could do Votan as... Oh, this is terrible. I regret starting this sentence. Votan as Kasserkin, but then just call them Kasserkin, like spelled like the Votan would. I started it in my mind. I was like, this is great. And halfway through the sentence, like, wow, this sucks.
You're in the grudge book as well. Oh my god.
I think a really cool one would be the Wormblade done as in Saiyan armor, because a lot of their Wormblade stuff, I already did one of them as it.
Yeah.
They actually work as, little Saiyans, or Frieza men, little Frieza guys. But yeah, how about you, Eric?
Unfortunately, I haven't been hobbying much for Kill Team lately. I've been battling boxes of shame for other games from GW just to get rid of the boxes to make room.
Into the book you go.
But I'm still working on the Votan, actually, speaking of, and I don't know if I'm going to take them to LVO or not. I don't know if you guys have the same problem as me, but I can tell you my coworkers and my teammates both give me so much crap for this all the time. I wait till about a week before an event, and that's when I start hobbying and painting for some reason. I don't know why. It just always happens that way. I guess I get more into a groove. Do you guys feel the same way?
Yes.
Yeah, that's how I finished my Kasserkin.
Giacomo will paint till 6:15 a.m.
Game
and literally, and then win best painted, and he's like exhausted. He's like, "It was worth it."
Yeah.
And then he falls asleep at like 10 o'clock while at a party. He's just passed out on the couch next to me.
That poncho was so comfy.
I have pictures, G. I have pictures.
Oh man, that's me when I'm all rested.
Of all these things.
I think this is an innate Warhammer thing.
Yeah, it's that crunch, that crunch gets you through it. Like the crunch on a Crunchwrap Supreme.
Yeah.
How did I know you were going to bring that up?
Because it has crunch in it.
So
actually, I don't really like Crunchwrap Supremes.
So while we're rounding everything out, do you guys want to give out any shout outs?
Don't everybody go at once.
I know, right? Like we haven't thought long enough. I'll go first. Shout out to everyone attending LVO. Thank you for making this the biggest event ever. Thank you to our Patreons, and thank you for everyone who helped me at the GoFundMe to really make everything happen. Definitely means a lot to me and my family. For all our patrons, thank you for supporting Squad Games this entire year. And if you're new, thank you for supporting us forward. We very much look forward to making more and more content for everyone this year.
I'll do some shout outs.
Yeah.
You can find me and my hobby when I eventually post it up again on my Instagram at eman.paints. I've been neglecting the Strategic Advantage blog, which is strategicadvantage.blog, for a couple months now. Life being pretty busy, but New Year's resolution and what have you. Try and bring that back and do some fun stuff on there. And shout out to Squad Games. Y'all are killing it. Keep on killing it.
Thanks.
Thank you,
brother. Thank you, brother.
Eric, how about you?
First of all, I'd like to shout out the three of you for allowing me to come on the podcast tonight. I know, like Dakotah said earlier, this is something we've been talking about. I would honestly say back and forth for maybe about a month and a half, just kind of trying to get this set up. So I really appreciate your guys' patience. Working in a hospital and getting up early, it's really hard for me to schedule a time with you guys, and I'm glad we were able to collab through this.
Have fun sleeping tonight, my guy.
Oh yeah, I got less than 5 hours before I got to be at work. So,
so sorry. Caffeine is your friend.
What we do for the Kill Team community, just remember that. So again, thank you very much for being so nice. It was nice to meet you, Emmanuel, and Giacomo for the first time. I've listened to your Squad Games podcast for a long time. I usually listen to it at work while I'm doing some type of admin work on the computer. I'd like to shout out not only my coworkers, but also my team, Plasma Spam, for helping me become a better TO and just overall being a good team for the community and help growing the community itself for Kill Team. Nick, Orion, Dan, everybody, the Garretts, just thanks so much for not only the team, but everyone else that knows me in the Kill Team community for helping to create this game and where it's going to go in the future. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Hell yeah. I'll go last then, because I'm all that's left. You can find me on Instagram at wargaming_studios. Again, that is wargaming_studios on Instagram. And if you want to join the conversation, you can find us on Discord. Our link is in the show notes. We talk about Kill Team. We talk about Kill Team. And we talk about pizza, nachos, and whatever other things. But mainly Kill Team. And if you're looking to buy stuff, we have our new affiliate, like Dakotah mentioned. Links will be in the description. Buying Kill Team stuff, buying hobby stuff. And, we still got the FLG affiliate as well. So if you're looking to buy stuff from either of those areas, maybe both got what you need, feel free to do so. It gives us a little bit of a kickback, and we really appreciate it. And, yeah. That's it.
All right. Well, thanks for jumping on, fellas. Appreciate you.
Yeah, thanks for having me, as always. Had a great time.
Thank you.
The Squad Games podcast is a production of Squad Games Entertainment. For more information on Squad Games, please visit our website at lestersworkshop.com/squad-games.